All right, I'm live, and it's the first time like doing this because I don't have space on my phone. And I was actually just trying to record a video, upload it, and get about my day. And I was literally 2 minutes in, and the video just stopped. So this phone is full. It's official. I gotta sit down and delete. But I was basically the whole conversation I was getting into was the idea that the truth I want to present, the truth I know that I've come to know, right? There will be obstacles, right? I knew that in terms of trying to share it, disseminate it to others, try and get them to understand it on first attempt, right? That's the whole thing of trying to be an excellent communicator. If you're an excellent communicator, you're able to disseminate a point and get it to majority of your audience in the first shot. I would love to be able to do that with the complex thought, with the complex, nuanced thoughts that I share when it comes to race, when it comes to the truth I know. So I was just on TikTok, and I'm rarely on TikTok, but I was there to do some research in terms of understanding algorithms, especially before this platform fizzles out. I don't know if it's gonna do so anytime soon, but still just to find out what's the cultural conversations that's happening, what's the kind of content being shared, what things are going viral. I just normally tap in for about 5 to 10 minutes and just do a bunch of quick scrolls and see what's at least going on my algorithm. But in that time, it came to a live, and on the screen it said, uh, white culture is not a thing. Prove me wrong, right? And it was a young lady, a gentleman, going back and forth, having a discussion, debating on whiteness, blackness, culture, whatever. And that's a sweet sore spot for me. Like, I can't just scroll past that. I gotta at least take it in for 30 seconds. I gotta at least see what's going on. And in the 30 seconds that I'm listening, I realize, okay, this young lady is Canadian, from Toronto. Majority of the people in the chat are also Canadian or from, Toronto, Ontario, whatever. They're a lot of them are Jamaican descent like me. She's Jamaican descent like myself. So the conversation and the community of individuals is really, really like close to home. I'm not going anywhere at this point. I just found what I'm doing this morning until I go to work. Oh, so I'm taking in the conversation and I'm noticing certain things, and I'm not really, in a sense, vibing all the way. Like, I'm vibing in terms of the content conversation, why I'm there, but I'm not really vibing with what's being said and the back and forth. I'm noticing the white gentleman having certain questions or making certain points, and the entire conversation is basing truths on fallacy. And the lady was freestyling, right? So I was in the chat saying, man, I'm not really cool with all this freestyling. And everybody was asking, what do you mean by freestyling? Well, what I mean is, we're having a conversation about objective truth, right? And a lot of subjective opinions and POVs and assumptions are being made. So as I'm watching this whole platform of saying we need to deconstruct whiteness, that started being said, I started asking the question, deconstruct whiteness. In all fairness, it's blackness that needs to be deconstructed. I'm seeing it there live in my face. So, so there at that point, I'm like, okay, what am I gonna say? Like, I need to go on stage. I requested to go on stage, and I'm waiting. And in that time, even another white person comes up, and they're basically, or I think a white lady goes up, and she's basically asking, like, why is there so much hate against white people and all that stuff? Like the usual, like, woe is me such. But instead of it becoming a learning experience, they loaded down more on the lady. So I was like, nah, you guys are not understanding that you're actually more lost in the sauce than she is. If white culture is fake, has no point in existence, is only based on colonial powers and the whole idea of uniting different white subcultures together to create this idea of whiteness, then what are we participating in right now? What am I even speaking? If the if the whole idea that white people came, took others, othered them and called them black, disenfranchised them, and we adhere to that narrative, then they got to be white. If we're adhering to the narrative, we're living in the narrative, we're living in the truth of saying, hey, we are actually descendants from Africa, stolen and taken here, then you're not just adhering to the fact that they're white, you're actually adhering to their supremacy. Let me break that down. First thing, if you claim the continent to be Africa and you're claiming yourself to be African, you're ignoring the fact that the continent was never called Africa and that the actual history of why we call it Africa is convoluted in terms of some thinking, some scholars saying it is because of Africanus taking over a certain region and naming it that, or people saying no, the region was already that. When it was conquered, he named himself that. But we're still talking about a region. We know that Ethiopia at the time was how we referred to the continent. We know that there's folks who say a Kiblan. We know that there's so many different perspectives of that. Come on. But what we don't know is your literal connection to that piece of land. You're just claiming to say you're African. And the reason why is because that was what was propagated in order to create a subclass. We're going to put all of these people, which we are going to also say this is the progenesis of whiteness. We're going to say that humanity started here and evolved to the point of whiteness, to the point of the Caucasian race. So when you even adhere to the idea of African, you're adhering to Darwinism. When you say I'm African, that's a Darwin perspective. So now when I'm coming in and I'm saying, look, we're indigenous. So like we're indigenous in America. We're indigenous here before Columbus got here. Here looking like this. That is not connecting because there's layers of folks saying, oh, you're trying to be anti-African, anti-black, you're self-hate, anti-Pan-Africanist. The whole way of just trying to use English to say what you have to say triggers on other theology points that I'm not even speaking to because I'm not anti-black, not anti-African, or any of these terms. I find benefits in Pan-Africanism in terms of grouping yourselves together with like-minded individuals for economic growth. You're melanated. I want to see you win. So that's not going to be anti-black. I just don't agree with the term black. We know that that's a color. We know white's a color. Like we know that's part of like drawing, like you know to be like painting has nothing to do with race, like or trying to classify yourself as a person. The idea of a race is we're racing. That's the who's gonna hit the finish line first. Like so, you're participating in the lie, and because you don't want to deconstruct your participation in it, you think that pointing at the other participant and saying we're gonna deconstruct you. That's some weird Kendrick stuff. That's what Kendrick was doing. That's what I literally feel like, oh, everybody's on this energy like Kendrick deconstructed Drake. But realistically, Kendrick deconstructed himself. because he exposed that he's dependent on the very same system that Drake is dominating. You're not like us. You're not like us. While I use the same system to benefit. We're the same cogs in the machine, using the same fake currency, living and benefiting off of the history of whiteness. You can't deconstruct that without deconstructing your damn self first. So clearly I didn't get to that point. Clearly, because it's not my platform. This is not Clubhouse. I'm not used to this TikTok limited speakers, only 2 people, 4 people, or 3 people, or whatever on stage at a time, or whatever. I don't know if she was just limiting her stage purposely or whatever the case would be, but she was making it hostile. She didn't have to, because I was chill. I'm used to Clubhouse where they actually get hostile. People are swearing and whatever. No one swore at me, so I didn't have to get out of pocket. There was this one American girl from Brooklyn who did get triggered, and came up on stage and she was like, how could you say deconstruct whiteness? How could you know what I mean? But I broke it down for her. I broke it down. I said, look, we're the indigenous people. I broke down the fact that America, which is really United States, United Stations, have propagated and created this monolith of understanding thought of race. And there was a whole nation, there was nations here in the Americas before America existed, before the United States existed. Even as colonies, as companies, the British were here to Canada, like doing their thing. The Quebec was here. French was here. Like, we understand that these companies were in certain specific demographic areas. They were here, they were there, they weren't everywhere. Y'all acting like these white folk was like dominated all of the Americas from jump. No, 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 no. You could even read the diaries of specific travelers. You could read Christopher Columbus's diary. Costs a few bands, but there's folks who've posted PDFs of them online. You can go and at least check those pages and read and see that he said, oh, they're coffee-colored Indians, the dark-colored, the Negro, or whatever we would call them, Ethiopians. He was comparing the indigenous race of peoples to Ethiopians. Not because they were Ethiopians, because they looked just like them. Because all around the planet, Australia, China, doesn't matter where, the original people's dark. That's just a fact, man. The original people's dark, bro. We don't know why. Science has not figured that out. That's why they now argue on the inception story of being out of Africa, this big out of Africa theory, which was literally created from Darwinism and this whole perspective of saying whiteness evolved from blackness. When, if anything, whiteness devolved from blackness, right? That's scientists say that and factually say that. Now, white folk is saying that, oh, we devolved. Like, we are intermixed breed, but a devolution of what the African can do. But why can't we say what the American can do? Because there's bones just as old found here in the Americas. There's more freshwater sources here in Americas than anywhere else on the planet. Why would the earliest ancient people, I get it, the Sahara Desert is supposedly supposed to have been a body of water, but still wouldn't compare to the potentials of what's here, the rich minerals. Just in Jamaica, Trinidad, and some of these islands alone, you find so much resources. So I honestly don't understand the perspective of saying you have to claim this African dogmatic perspective of life or you're anti-black. But I'm realizing, okay, that's going to be the obstacle. That's the obstacle. Like, I'm also having to deal with indigenous erasure. Oh, you're trying to erase our indigenous identity. No, we could pinpoint it. We could pinpoint it. No one's erasing nothing. We could pinpoint everything. Are you connected to like the Asiatic, the Asian looking indigenous? We know when those folks came into the Americas when they were running from Genghis Khan. We know that. That's not too long ago. Through the Siberia or the Alaskan Strait. That's not too far gone. So they're not the indigenous. The Inuit folk. If we're talking about um, even the other the South Asian mixed indigenous, I guess you would say, or East Asian. I don't even know what you would technically call them, but the Pacific Islanders. We know when they got there too. The real question now, right? The real question is trying to make the claim that Taino Arawak people are not melanated people. And you would have to try and prove that the light skinned Mexicans, and all these folk are really indigenous more so than the folk you find who we call the Caribs. The folk you find. So I'm not gonna get into conversation in Brazil and the folks who were brought to Brazil. Brazil is more convoluted of a conversation that I will admit I'm ready to have. I have to do way more research on the immigration patterns or the integration patterns and the migration patterns of certain areas in South America. But through even studying the colonization of South America, the different areas and periods of war, and the amount of different wars, and then the Gullah Wars and the Geechee Wars and the different types of wars, you kind of understand that what I'm saying is closer to the truth than what they're saying right now. Because there technically shouldn't need to be so many different kinds of wars and rebellions and this and that if it was just, oh, transatlantic slavery. You're bringing people who are clearly not even close to their homelands anymore over here to foreign land, but they're able to rise up with arms, with neighbors, with might, and actually cause issue. But you were able to pluck them up. See, the problem is you think they were powerful enough to bring such a large mass of people here, but not powerful enough to keep them subjugated. But it would make more sense to think, oh, they came here, maybe brought some folk, disturbed populations here, took who they could from those populations, and the rest of the folk, they still and always had to fight. There was never a stopping of fighting the rest of the folk here until the eventual treaty. Right? Because then that would make you realize, oh, damn, we POWs. We, if anything, we asleep at the helm. Not like, oh, we're victims and this is the state of being no, because they beat up too. The white demographic is beat up as much as we are. And you realize, oh, has been more of a cultural tribal war with a bunch of allied nations over the span of half a decade or whatever, half a millennium. Yeah. So I have to figure out better ways because, before I was able to truly break down my point, I got kicked off stage. That bothered me because I didn't swear, I didn't get loud, I didn't get rude. The point of contention is that I was cutting off the host. We're having a conversation. When you stop talking, I start talking because you finished the point. If your point isn't done because you want to hum and ha a bit and then say, okay, I have nothing left to say, you can go, then sorry, I don't care whose platform it is, that's not gonna work with an actual man who just does this thing. Maybe if I was some little itch nigga, then you could get away with that, but I'm actually a guy. I have thoughts, I have things to say as you're speaking. I'm actively listening, And I'm not even just listening to react or listening to respond or whatever. I'm listening. And once you say your point, there's already a lot of research I've done. And probably the point is already hitting other things that I already have the correct answer for. So I don't need to take time to respond. I can literally give you the response you were looking for based on your point of contention. And I'm not just responding because I want to speak, I'm responding because there's a literal point to the things I'm saying against the things you're saying. And it's against the thing you're saying. It's not just a general cliche statement that can just generally be applied or is used to try and filibuster or any. No, it's a real poignant statement that replies to your contentions. And if anything further, might undermine your core belief. And if anything, I can understand that when someone is making a point that feels like it's shaking your core belief, pride becomes a singular point to either trying to address it with humbling and saying, okay, let me see if he's telling the truth, or let me go do some further research, or then saying or making up narratives to try and make that person and assassinate that person's character so you don't have to take what they say seriously. And that's what it became. Anti-black, anti-African. I don't know why people have to not do their history if they take their projecting like crazy, because they don't realize I'm a black man, and if anything, in African cultures, black cultures, black man should be respected. He's come on stage, you've given him, you respected him enough to bring him on stage, you should respect that energy. And you ask for my pronouns and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm a man. You know what I mean? Already from jump, the energy was off, because for me, you hear my voice, you don't have to ask my pronoun. Who give it? Like, my energy is apparent, and it's that liberal, weird progressive, not the real progressive, the weird progressive, anti-black, real anti-black feminist POVs that I deal with on dailies. And it's like, damn, I'm gonna have to figure that out. I'm gonna really have to figure that out. I think the step one is don't go on no platform run by black women. And I hate that I have to say that, but in order for me to truly be able to disseminate my truth properly and with respect, and able to ensure that yo, folks were in the comments saying, yo, they're not ready for this conversation, Maxwell. I don't know why you're going up there, Maxwell. They're not ready for this conversation. I should have listened to those people, because I was new to TikTok. I'm new to TikTok. I'm not really on TikTok like that. And I was just going up to try and learn about the algorithms. I wasn't really going up there to have no clubhouse vibe, but I just happened to fall upon that live. I know for the future now. But anyways, that's basically what I wanted to come up and share. But then my phone doesn't have space. I gotta delete a bunch of videos from Caravana. Probably post that video too, because that's posted on TikTok. But y'all need to see, y'all need to see how we vibe, how we get it. So I'm gonna post that. But anyways, y'all, that's all I want to say. It's still pretty early. That's why I'm kind of whispering. Don't want to wake up nobody, even though my voice carries. So I probably have. It is what it is. Peace. Oh, actually, no, not peace. Not peace. Not peace. Let's speak quickly about the whole idea of the deconstructing white people or whiteness, right? Because that was and is where they were trying to push their conversation to. And what's the point? I spoke on it a bit earlier, right? I said, like, we're the ones using this fiat system. We're the ones participating in this. But it's even further. We are the cogs in the machine. In one breath, we're going to say that, yo, the small hats, they've taken our oppressive story and built this whole thing in Hollywood, and they keep showing us slave movies and this, that, and they fund the NAACP and whatever, all these different organizations, you could find that these folks is behind it, spending their money. It's like they're trying to push. They're behind BLM and right? In one breath, folks is gonna say that and go all the way and even quote lines from the book, the history or whatever, the unspoken history or whatever it's called, the hidden history of blacks and Jews, right? Or the relationship of whatever that book is called. But then, not want to admit that them pushing, right? Pushing and propagating us to the front of the line has to be for a purpose. And that those folk who are at the front of the line are then participating in the issue, in the effery. And I'm not trying to make it a thing where it's like, okay, you know, all successful black folk are part of the problem, da da da. But classism is a thing. And I think the second we switch gears and stop worrying about trying to deconstruct whiteness, because we can so pinpoint black people behaving just as, and just focus on classism, focus on, if anything, ageism in terms of protection and rights for children, young people. I think that's how we get a better world. But yeah, this video is gonna get too long, and I wasn't really like, my energy was already kind of zapped from that conversation, so I just wanted to share this and like vent it. I wasn't even gonna probably upload it, but I guess I had to just upload it because it's live. So I'm done. Peace.